Hi there, I'm Seb Maley from Qdos, and in this video we'll take a bit of a deeper dive into the world of umbrella companies. In our last video we talked about the measures announced in the budget, one of which was a bit of a surprise announcement that there would be some significant legislative reforms involving umbrella companies. So let's have a look at what that means. Before we get into the reforms though, it's probably worth speaking briefly about what umbrella companies actually are and why they exist. The term umbrella company is pretty unique to the UK, and umbrellas really became a fixture in the contracting landscape with the original introduction of the IR35 rules back in April 2000. Back then, it was the contractor who was responsible and liable for their IR35 status, and with aggressive policing of the rules from the then Inland Revenue, some contractors simply didn't want to take the risk of operating through their own limited company. An umbrella is an employment intermediary which sits between contractor and client, or between contractor and agency, and takes on the contractor as a PAYE employee. The umbrella will deduct all employment taxes and pay HMRC, which means IR35 is taken out of the equation. Whilst umbrellas have existed for a long time, the industry really started to gain momentum when the government introduced reforms to the IR35 rules in the public sector in 2017. These reforms switched responsibility and liability for IR35 status from the contractor to the public sector body who was engaging them, and it resulted in a lot of public sector organisations taking a risk-averse approach and refusing to engage contractors operating through their own limited company. Now, an actual question for the uninitiated at this point could be, well, why don't they just employ the worker directly if they still want their services? Well, in both the public and the private sector, there's an element of organisations wanting to have their cake and eat it. They still want the flexibility of engaging contractors, but don't want to face the tax risk of doing so on an outside IR35 basis. As a result, in 2017, thousands of contractors in the public sector were told that they had to sign up with an umbrella company to continue working for their client. As you can imagine, this created a boom for many umbrella companies, with their contractor numbers dramatically increasing overnight. This happened again to a much greater degree in 2021, when the reforms were extended to the private sector. As with the public sector, a lot of organisations took a very risk-averse approach, pushing tens of thousands of contractors into umbrella companies ahead of the 6th of April changes. The result of these reforms has meant that the umbrella company sector has become a genuinely huge industry. It's estimated that there are upwards of 700,000 individuals using umbrellas today, and some of the larger firms have annual turnovers running into the billions. Interestingly, the concept of an umbrella company is very much a British phenomenon, but in recent years there has been a lot of growth in similar organisations internationally, particularly in the US. You might have seen the terms employer of record or professional employment organisation, both of which are also employment intermediaries sitting between the parties in a contractual chain. The main difference, though, is that generally with these international examples, the hirer is paying for that service by effectively outsourcing their employment responsibilities to another firm. With umbrella companies in the UK, all charges are levied on the worker, with the hirer simply continuing to pay a gross daily rate. So what is the problem with umbrella companies, and what has caused the government to announce the changes? Firstly, I would state that umbrella companies do play an important role in the world of flexible labour in the UK. It's not always appropriate or practical for hirers to engage genuinely self-employed workers, nor is it always practical for them to engage full employees. Umbrella companies can provide an additional layer of flexibility for both worker and hirer in this regard. And now, naturally, that sentiment won't necessarily be felt by contractors who weren't given a choice about using an umbrella company after the IR35 reforms. Because a lot of organisations took policy decisions not to engage personal service companies, huge numbers of contractors who had run their businesses for many years were told to either leave or sign up with an umbrella. That would have left a rather bitter taste in the mouth for many. But away from that, one of the major problems the industry faces is not with bona fide umbrellas themselves, but with other companies who dress up as an umbrella company, but are actually something far more nefarious. For over 2 decades, the contracting world has been plagued by tax avoidance schemes who seek to capitalise on the very model of contract work by devising complex structures which seek to avoid or evade tax. Ostensibly, these could be viewed as vehicles to reduce an individual worker's tax bill, but in reality, these models are far more self-serving than that and will have made a lot of unscrupulous operators a hell of a lot of money. A lot of contractors will have been duped by these schemes, not through a desire to lower their tax bill, but simply by wanting a safe haven from IR35 and a simple way to provide their services. These schemes haven't just targeted relatively well-paid white-collar consultants, but have also been prevalent throughout places like the NHS and construction sector. Unfortunately for the individual, it has been them that HMRC have pursued, which is why we are left with hugely controversial measures like the loan charge, which has caused untold stress and financial ruin to thousands. All of this has happened because the whole area of umbrella companies and employment intermediaries is unregulated, which, given the volumes of both taxpayers and money flowing through it, simply cannot continue to happen. HMRC's activity in pursuing tax avoidance schemes and the users of them hasn't put a stop to their existence. HMRC publish a list of known avoidance schemes and every few weeks add more companies, so it's clearly still a major problem. All of this has pushed the new government into reacting, and from 2026 they will make the recruitment agency or hirer, rather than the umbrella company itself, responsible and liable for any tax arrears. Whilst this is clearly not regulation in the true sense of the word, the government's hope will be that it will force the industry to self-regulate. By putting a liability on the recruitment firm, the theory is that due diligence should be dramatically improved and the dodgy operators weeded out. There are, of course, some question marks over how supply chains are actually going to react to this change. We've seen from the I-35 reform that potential liability can cause risk aversion and knee-jerk reactions, but there are certainly many people in the sector who are already preparing for 2026 and a new way of operating. We'll keep you informed of how things progress in this space, so please subscribe to our channel to be notified, and we'll see you next time.